Under here is your 40-gallon fuel tank. The boat burns a regular 87 octane. There is no reason at all to run high octane fuel because the engine is tuned for 87 octane. And a 40-gallon tank gives you a tremendous amount of range, especially at cruise, which is about 5 or 6 gallons an hour. Okay, the side compartments here are simply storage. They're not watertight storage. They're just made for a toolbox, you know, things that you put back there. So just remember, if you have something you want to keep watertight, that isn't the place to keep it. There's other areas you can do that. The fuel fill over here is you just push in on the back and lift it up to fill your fuel tank. You'll see I keep a super siphon here, which is a magical device. If you have polycubes or if you're hauling fuel in drums and you want to transfer the fuel, you simply put the check ball down in the tank, put the, you know, after cleaning it, put the hose down in there and then just pump the hose a few times and it'll gravity feed the tank. In about 5 minutes it'll be empty. It's a neat system, and it's kind of nice to be able to have a simple way to transfer fuel. Always remember, of course, to shut your fuel tank when you're done, or you're going to get water and rain in there, and that's not a good thing. Okay, well, we're going to go into the engine box and show you the 200 horse Optimax. This is a 2-cycle direct injected engine, as opposed to carbureted engines, which are kind of a thing of the past. The direct injected engine is better than a fuel injected engine. It's better than a semi-directed engine. It is the most advanced two-cycle engine, and it's great on fuel economy, and it's excellent for service and maintenance. The beauty of the direct injected engine also is that it doesn't tend to load up like a carbureted engine. There's no cold starting issues. You don't have to worry about a primer or a choke. You just turn the key and the thing starts, and that's what we like about it. It is an oil injected engine, so there's a 3-gallon oil tank down here, and you have to maintain your oil in there. We recommend you use a high quality 2-cycle oil, like you can use Mercury direct injected oil. You can use an equivalent. Yamaha makes an excellent oil. There's several companies. I would stay away from your supermarket oils. Some of those are very low quality, and it could void your warranty if you run a really low quality oil in this high quality engine. The important thing is to, before every trip, you should check your oil level, make sure your oil tank is full or close to it. This cap needs to be good and hand snug after filling it, because if it isn't, it will cause problems. So you want to tighten it and get it good and hand snug, like that. The 3-gallon tank feeds a small reserve tank over here on the port side of the engine. Okay, the engine is the oil is fed by crankcase pressure, and that's what feeds this small tank. And this tank is what feeds the oil pump so that the engine stays properly lubricated. If you forget to fill this big tank, there is a sensor on the oil tank, and when it gets down to about when it runs out on the big tank, you're only at about 9% fuel remaining. With the SmartCraft gauge, it will tell you that you're low on oil. It'll tell you you're at 9%, and basically you only have about 20 minutes of run time left on that little tank. So it's gonna flash low oil. It'll give you the beep, 4 beeps every 2 minutes, which will tell you, hey, I'm low on oil. In the event you forget about oiling your big tank and you start to run off the small tank, when you go to refill your big tank, you have to take the cap off the small tank and top it off all the way to the top. You can't have any air in this system, or it'll think it's low on oil. When they figure out how to make an engine run without oil, would be interested in that engine. I don't think they're going to do that, but you got to keep oil in your engine to keep it running. So that's it on the oil. Just a good idea before every trip, just to check your oil level, top it off if you need. I always carry 1 gallon of oil with me at least as a backup in my storage box. It's a good idea to get a small funnel so you don't make a big mess when you're pouring your oil, and that should take care of that. The battery is a Group 24 high quality battery. We use Interstate, but you can use any brand so long as you're at least 750 cold cranking amps. This one is 800. And that's because of the direct injection engine requires a high cold cranking amp battery. Okay, we're going to move on. This boat has the optional sand trap, and basically it's taking your incoming water and filtering it through a screen before it goes through the rest of the system. It's easy, it swivels, you can unscrew this bowl and dump it out. It is important to note that there is a gasket in here, so if you rinse it out in a river, make sure to keep your fingers over that gasket or remove it first. I recommend you carry an extra gasket in your toolkit, because if you lose this gasket, it is going to spray water everywhere inside your bilge pump or inside your bilge area. So you want to rinse this out. We'll do that in a minute, and then put it back on. Good idea at the end of the season. We'll go over winterization, but that's one of the things you want to drain at the end of the season. Real simple to do. This is your engine lid. It's very, very seldom you'd have to get under this lid, but there is a bungee cord on the port side of the engine. You just disconnect it, kind of wiggle this straight up, and it exposes the flywheel, the alternator, your air handler system, and so forth. Again, there's no carburetors because it's a direct injected engine. There is a filter under here that feeds the air handler, the compressor, and so forth. If you ever take it off and it's all black, that would be an indication you've blown a hose, or you had something that caused it. And this should be, they recommend you change these annually. It's an inexpensive filter and it pops right out. Not a bad idea. You have a water separator fuel filter coming out of the tank. There is a shutoff valve for transporting the boat if you're going a long distance or off season. If you want to shut the fuel system off, the fuel flow off, you can. This is in the open position. One thing about a direct injected engine is that it's very important to keep good fuel going to that engine. You don't want any water. Water is the enemy of any engine, especially a direct injected engine. And it's easy to prevent. Mercury has a nice system of sensors and warnings if there's water that gets beyond the onboard filter, and we'll go over the fuel system now. Like I mentioned earlier, it's 87 octane, just pump unleaded is all it's required in the fuel tank itself. The fuel will leave the tank. This is your fuel lift pump, and so when you turn the key, you'll hear this fuel lift pump tick. It kind of goes tick, 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 and that's just pulling fuel up to the system to be ready to go into the other fuel pumps. It's got a small inline filter here, also should be changed annually, just ahead of the lift pump. But basically, that's pulling fuel up through the filter, through the Racor filter, and up, getting it ready here to go on through the system when you start the engine. On the bottom of the water separator filter is a bolt, a drain, and if you ever do get a note on your dash that you have water in the gas, or if you get the horn going off, the beeping code that indicates water in the gas, you'd want to start by draining the fuel out of the water separator filter, Racor filter. And I always carry like a spray paint lid, something hard plastic that you can check it, you can pour it into and look at it and see if you have any water in there. But you have to get it out of this system if you do indeed ingest water into the tank, or you left your cap open, or for some reason you had water in the gas. Once it goes beyond this filter, it goes up into your lift pump, past the small inline filter, and then it's going to feed into your main onboard water separator filter. This is the black filter on your boat that has a small wire going to the bottom of it. You'll want to carry in your toolkit the filter wrench, like you'd use for a small, like a Japanese car filter, a small car filter. It's about the same size as an oil filter on a small car, and of course you simply pull the little plug off straight down. You wiggle it and it comes right off. That's your sensor, and then you put the filter wrench on it and spin the filter off. The nice thing with this system is that it was designed where if water gets beyond your Racor filter, because they'll only hold so much, and it goes up into your main onboard filter, as water comes up that filter, there's a little sensor there that will indicate to the dash water in the gas. You may also get the code 4 beeps every 2 minutes. Now that's the same code as a low oil code, but you'll know it's one of those two. If you're not low on oil, then you've got water in your gas. And with the new SmartCraft gauge, it will tell you water in the gas or low oil. So for some reason you didn't have that, you can opt not to get the SmartCraft gauge, which is standard now, and then you'd have to pay attention to those beep codes. Those codes are in the owner's manual, which you should always carry in your boat, and I recommend you put it in a Ziploc so that it doesn't get wet. Keep it in your toolkit so you can refer to it if you need to. So that's pretty much the fuel system. There's a high and low pressure fuel pump, which don't demand any attention or anything. They take care of themselves pretty much. But that's pretty much the fuel system on the Optimax. Okay, next we'll go to the other side of the engine. Basically, you just have your alternator, which charges your battery and your other components. You have your air handler, and it has an alternator belt here. A lot of people ask me if they need to carry one. I've never had to replace one, but there's a first time for everything. It's like a spare tire. You don't need it till you need it. They are available, but very, very seldom we see a problem there. On the opposite side of the motor, mostly your electronics, your starter motor, your starter solenoid, your fuses, relays. The electronic portion of this engine has been bulletproof. The things you can check occasionally is make sure you have a good connection. Don't snap it, don't get brutal, but check your solenoid, red solenoid wire, because especially on a direct injected engine, if you have a loose cable or a loose ground, it can create running issues, and you'll track down everything else and then find out it was just a loose cable. So check that, check your grounds occasionally. Just make sure your wires are not loose when you wiggle them with your hand, and that's really all you have to check occasionally. There is a really nice Mercury diagnostic system we have in our service department, as most Merc dealers do. If there's an odd issue, a running issue or something, we have a diagnostics that can point us usually right to the area of concern. There are some fuses on the engine for the fuel pump, the starter system, and so forth, and I recommend you carry just some extra, I think 5, 15, and 20 amp fuses, just one of each, just to carry them in your toolkit. They're the common double speed automotive style fuses, so you want to just carry some of those. This is your water flush kit, and this is if you run in salt water or if you ever overheat the engine and need to flush the passages, you just simply take this nut off and you thread in your garden hose. Important, you turn the water on the garden hose on fully and let it run before you start the engine. You want to do it in that order so that there's water inside the system. One other important note on your water flusher is you don't want to run higher than an idle. Just if you come out of the salt water and you're going to flush the system, you can do it one of two ways. You can either run it on the garden hose as I described and just let it run for a few minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, just at an idle or a high idle is fine. Don't run high RPM. If you don't have access to a garden hose, you should run it over to a Clearwater lake or river, shortly after getting out of the salt water, within a couple, 3 hours. If you can just back it in and run it for 3 or 4 minutes on the trailer, that's what you need to do. You're just flushing any corrosion salt out of there. The motor is equipped with stainless fasteners, zinc anodes on the jet, so it's as well protected for ocean use as possible, but salt water can be nasty, and it's a good idea to flush it every time. Okay, we're pretty much done under the hood. Other than just showing you the mechanical bilge pump is this gray hose that lays down there. That will pump water out of the bilge at about 3,000 RPM in addition to your mechanical bilge pump. So this is always going. It's either pumping air or water out of the bilge, whatever's in there. So that's pretty simple. There is a circuit breaker switch hidden back here. If you ever had a situation that caused the circuit breaker to pop, you simply push it back down. It's hidden right underneath here, this plate. It's out of the way, and it's very, very seldom an issue.